Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel where we decode literature the smart way. This is me, Dr. Shweta, and today we are diving deep into T.S. Eliot's early poem, Portrait of a Lady, a brilliant, ironic and emotionally layered piece from the early 20th century. By the end of this video, you will know what the poem is about. That means I'll decode the stanza-wise summary of the poem for you here, or you can say the critical appreciation, who the characters are, the major themes and modernist elements of the poem, some iconic quotes and what they actually mean in the context of the poem, the allusions that Eliot makes, and what critics have said about this poem. So let's get into it. Let me first introduce the poem to you. Portrait of a Lady was published in the year 1915 in Eliot's collection Prufrock and Other Observations. The title is taken from Henry James's novel of the same title, The Portrait of a Lady, but Eliot's take is far more cynical and far more modern than what James has done in his book. It's a dramatic monologue, which was a form that Eliot mastered, where a male speaker thinks about a series of awkward social encounters, or you can say his awkward meetings with a cultured but an older woman whom he is apparently dating. The tone of the poem is dry, ironic, and emotionally detached. We don't see either the speaker of the poem or the woman having any real emotional connection with each other. They seem to be very distant and very superficial in their so-called romantic relationship. So that is the background of the entire poem for you. Now let us move to the stanza and their understanding or the critical appreciation of each stanza. The poem comprises of 3 stanzas. In the first stanza, the poem begins with a meeting between the speaker and the lady in her room. She invites him. She speaks sentimentally about life, about seasons and emotions, while the speaker is emotionally very passive. There is hardly anything that he responds back to the lady. There's a quote, "You do not know how much they mean to me, my friends, and how rare and strange it is to find in a life composed so much of odds and ends." So here we see she seeks an emotional connection, but the speaker doesn't respond, reflecting the fragmentation of modern relationships. There is no real heartfelt connection between the two. Though it appears that the lady wishes to form such a connection, but the speaker or the man, he is indifferent to her. He is rather lost in his own world and his own thoughts. Then in next stanza, that is stanza 2, the speaker continues to observe the lady's efforts to establish a kind of intimacy, a soulful connection. At one occasion, she also hints at the loneliness and she subtly suggests that she might need him in her life. For example, in the lines where she says, "How much it means that I say this to you, without these friendships, life what kushamur." That means, kushamur means a distressing dream, a nightmare. So definitely the lady here is really looking forward to having a life with the man, the speaker of the poem. But he seems to be neglecting her all this while. It is she who does the talking and the man, the speaker, is rather narrating the whole episode of meeting that woman to us, the readers, instead of indulging in a conversation with the lady herself. At one place he says, and I quote here, "Inside my brain, a dull tom-tom begins, absurdly hammering a prelude of its own," which shows his disinterest in the woman or whatever she is saying to him. We also see that his thoughts are elsewhere. He is thinking about a concert he attended and he quotes John Donne's "Go and Catch a Falling Star," which is a kind of mockery of the romantic ideals. He is present before her, but he is doing nothing, saying nothing, and just smiles and goes on drinking tea. Her voice, he quotes, returns like the insistent out of tune of a broken violin on an August afternoon, which shows his lack of interest in our conversation. So this juxtaposition, contrasts of emotions between the two reveals emotional disconnection between the two people, the speaker and the lady. Let's now move to the last stanza, that is stanza 3. Time has passed and the speaker describes a possible final conversation with the lady. The lady accuses him of being indifferent towards her. She says, "You are a proper young man," and asks if he will remember her. He doesn't respond directly. Instead, he muses about the smoke and fog of December afternoon, signaling emotional and physical evasion. And also he is moving to Paris. He is leaving that lady now. By the end of the poem, the lady too has understood his predicament and his lack of any kind of feelings towards her. When she says, "And so you are going abroad, and when do you return?" But that's useless question. This quote itself shows that she now knows that they both have no future together. In fact, she asks him to write to her in a polite manner, and she raises a very pertinent question: why we have not developed into friends? Which shows the isolation, lack of trust, self-possessiveness of the modern people who are unable to form a real bond with each other. The man, the speaker of the poem, then decides to leave everything to the fate when he tells the readers, that is us, we must leave it to fate now. And the lady also gives us an indication of the continuity of life in spite of everything when she says, "I shall sit here serving tea to friends," which signals towards the flow of life. She also hints towards the benefits of youth and burdens of the old age. When she says to the speaker, "You are invulnerable, you have no Achilles heel." That means you have no weakness, which means youth has so much to achieve, aspire for. But she is at such a stage in her life, being old, that she is now not desired by anyone. And the best that she could do is to sit and serve tea to her friends. Now let us move to the character analysis and their behavior in the poem. There are two characters in the poem, the speaker and the lady. The speaker is detached, self-conscious, ironic, and emotionally evasive. He represents the modern man, intelligent but alienated. The lady, on the other hand, is cultured, refined, sensitive, but ultimately powerless. She seeks meaningful connection, but she never receives it. They are the dramatic foils. One yearns, the other withdraws. Eliot creates discomfort by showing how emotionally sterile modern life has become for the people in the modern age. Let us now also talk about the major themes in the poem. The first theme is emotional isolation and alienation, which is central to the speaker's inability to connect with the lady in question. The second is the theme of boredom of social rituals, which means the conversations are forced, they're very formal, they're very repetitive. We see the lady questioning the speaker, but he hardly answers, and she herself rather replies on his behalf. The man is more into talking to his own inner self. That is why the interior monologue device is used by Eliot. The third theme is gender and power dynamics. The lady holds cultural and emotional authority, but the speaker's detachment makes her powerless. She doesn't feel any real connection or feeling from his side. The fourth theme is of decay of romance. Love and sentiment are treated with irony and distance. There is no warmth into their relationship. Fifth is of time and mortality. Underneath the surface, there is a fear of time passing without real meaning or a real connection. The man seems to be always on the edge, ready to leave at the place where the lady is, or force himself to be there with the lady. He doesn't want to sit there wholeheartedly. So how this poem can be termed as a modernist piece? Why do we call it a modernist poem? What are those qualities in this poem? This poem is a prime example of modernist poetry because of the elements like fragmentation of thoughts and emotions that we see throughout the poem. Disillusionment with love and social norms. There are social norms, but the people are disillusioned. They don't want to follow them. There is a use of stream of consciousness and interior monologue which makes this poem as a modernist piece. Then we have seen Eliot using literary allusions very heavily, like John Donne and other things. Then there is a focus on the individual consciousness over grand narratives. There is no talk about the grand narratives, but what an individual feels. It also pairs very well with the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock in the tone and in the voice. That's why these two poems can also be called as the companion poems. Let us also talk a bit about the allusions that are used in this poem. The first allusion is that of Henry James's novel, The Portrait of a Lady, from where the title of the poem has been taken. The title is very ironic. Eliot's lady lacks the freedom and depth of James' titular character Isabel Archer. The second allusion is taken from John Donne's poem. The speaker quotes Go Catch a Falling Star, which is a metaphysical poem about female inconstancy. That means not saying the same thing as one is actually feeling, which shows his cynical view towards women. Now let us talk about a few important quotes and their interpretations from the poem. The first one is, I shall sit here serving tea to friends, which shows irony and superficiality of the upper class hospitality, a mask of loneliness. Then we have the quotes like, I shall remember your smile, spoken without sincerity. He chooses politeness over emotional honesty. Then we have quotes like, among the smoke and fog of a December afternoon. Eliot here evokes urban imagery, urban alienation, a key image which is also found in Prufrock. Now let us talk about how the poem has been received by the critics. What is the critical reception of this poem? Critics like Hugh Canard and Clent Brooks note that this poem captures the exquisite horrors of polite society. Brooke calls it a portrait of spiritual bankruptcy, and Kenner highlights the speaker as an early form of the anti-hero, a prototype of the modern disillusioned man. So he is a perfect example of the modern disillusioned man. Now what does Eliot want to convey through his poem, The Portrait of a Lady? Eliot critiques the emotional sterility of modern relationships. The speaker is intelligent, perhaps even well-meaning, but incapable of any kind of deep feelings and true emotions. The lady represents a fading world. She is old, a fading world of sentiments and traditions. She is still stuck to traditions, but the modern man, the speaker, is a modern person. He is not into those kind of emotional relationships. The poem asks, in a world of intellect and manners, is there a room for authentic emotions anymore? So that is the question which the poem raises. To conclude, Portrait of a Lady is a poem that quietly devastates the readers. Through layered irony, dramatic monologue, and subtle allusions, Eliot portrays the inner disconnection of modern life. The lady speaks gently, vulnerably, but the man listens with indifference. And in that space between speaking and silence, Eliot writes the tragedy of modern existence, how the people were living in the modern world. Thanks for watching. If you like this breakdown, hit like, share it with your literature buddies, and don't forget to subscribe for more such deep dives into poetry and fiction. See you in the next video.